This video is brought to you by Nebula. Since returning to office in December last year, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has spent no time idling. As well as some controversial changes and personnel purges at the domestic level, Tusk has also rapidly and dramatically reoriented Poland's foreign policy. While the previous government, led by Mateusz Morawiecki, held a more Eurosceptic policy, preferring regional partnerships over ties with Western Europe, Tusk has been the polar opposite, turning away from notably Eurosceptic countries like Hungary and Slovakia and towards the so-called Weimar Triangle, a grouping composed of Germany, France and Poland. If Tusk can successfully re-establish the Weimar Triangle, Poland will become an even more significant player in the EU, and it could spell an end to the so-called Visegrad group. So in this video, we'll explore how this manifested so far, Tusk's future plans, and the significance of this shift for the EU as a whole. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. So, in order to best understand Tusk's foreign policy, we need to have a look at his first stint in office between 2007 and 2014. During most of this period, Tusk made an effort to improve relations with Poland's two largest neighbours, Russia and Germany. Tusk advocated for a firm but cooperative stance towards Vladimir Putin, saying that Europe could improve its energy security in cooperation with Russia. He visited the Kremlin before visiting the White House, lifted long-standing embargoes on Russian agricultural imports, and even pushed for a new EU-Russia partnership, all while Putin pursued an offensive war against Georgia. However, with Russia's annexation of Crimea at the end of his tenure, Tusk re-evaluated this policy, advocating instead for a common energy market in order to reduce Europe's dependence on Russian gas. Despite opposing the construction of the Nord Stream pipeline, however, Tusk maintained good relations with his German counterpart Angela Merkel. In cooperation with her, Tusk worked on soothing disputes over World War II reconciliation, emphasising instead a common aim to deepen EU cooperation, marked by their mutual support for the Lisbon Treaty. Even so, Tusk still remained sceptical of Europe's fiscal union, even voicing concerns over the Eurozone crisis, and was quoted as saying that Europe's fate cannot be left to the hands of Paris and Berlin. We should also mention at this time that Tusk was actually quite close with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, with both of them opposing further fiscal union and Tusk even dismissing allegations of anti-democratic behaviour in Hungary as, quote, exaggerated. After his 5-year tenure as President of the European Council, Tusk's return to the helm of government has been marked by several important foreign policy re-evaluations. First, he plans on continuing the previous government's hardline stance towards Russia, which is not surprising due to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Tusk has stated that he's now considering reintroducing the ban on agricultural products from Russia which he once lifted, while also restarting shipments of weapons which were paused last year. During his first trip to Kiev, Tusk promised new military aid which would include a loan for Ukraine, as well as sorting out their differences over grain shipments from Ukraine. Second, Tusk has shifted away from the Visegrad group, which includes Poland, Czechia, Hungary and Slovakia. While the previous Polish government helped cultivate ties with these countries, which stood as a bulwark against the EU's migration quotas in 2015 to 17, Tusk's relationship to the group has become more ambivalent, to say the least. Before coming to a V4 meeting in Prague in late February, he voiced his doubts over whether the grouping still makes sense. This is due to Hungary and Slovakia's leaders having a different stance towards Russian aggression, with both refusing military aid to Ukraine and preferring peace negotiations instead. More recently, Tusk has suggested that Viktor Orban is, quote, betraying Europe and won't be forgiven for it. The third and most significant shift in Poland's foreign policy has been its closer ties towards Germany and France. Here, Tusk has remained more consistent, with him always being more pro-Western than his rivals from the conservative PIS party. Their rule has been marked by spats with the two countries, and this is now set to change. Against the backdrop of decreased reliance on the US for defence, Poland has set out to embrace the two largest EU members as close partners. Last month, Tusk met Macron and Scholz on the same day, and the three countries' foreign ministers held a trilateral, where they discussed reviving the so-called Weimar Triangle, with Germany's Annalena Baerbock stating that the Weimar Triangle can provide impetus and develop ideas for a strong, resilient Europe in turbulent times. For context, the Weimar Triangle first emerged as an idea in 1991, after the fall of the Soviet Union and the reunification of Germany, and its main purpose then was to support Poland with its emergence from communist rule and integration into the EU. While it didn't have any institutional structure, the Weimar Triangle was an important intra-European grouping, especially regarding security matters, with the three countries creating the so-called Weimar Battle Group in 2011. The grouping lost some of its relevance when Law and Justice took over in Poland, and in 2016, Polish Foreign Minister Witold Waszczykowski told Polish media that the Weimar Triangle had lost its relevance. Nonetheless, the return of Tusk has apparently revived the grouping, and security matters are once again high on the agenda. Defence cooperation within the Weimar Triangle would combine France's nuclear deterrent, Poland's large army size, along with Germany's economic and technological strength. However, we're still far from seeing any concrete proposal, and relations haven't been helped by Macron and Scholz's recent falling out over Ukraine. Despite this, Tusk insists on the need for the Weimar Triangle to take a leading role in Europe's security architecture, and it's possible that Poland's inclusion could actually smooth over some of the differences between France and Germany. So, what would this partnership mean for Europe? Well, as a starting block for EU-wide security cooperation, it would be a concrete step towards achieving Macron's dream of European strategic autonomy. Poland's withdrawal from Visegrad would also significantly undermine what's been a uniquely effective vehicle for resisting EU reform and closer union. Whether Weimar would fully replace Visegrad is, however, a different affair entirely. The two blocs have historically served slightly different purposes. The Weimar Triangle seems to be more focused on defence and strategic European cooperation, while Visegrad has found consensus over the question of migration and regional cooperation. Simply put, one doesn't necessarily cancel out the other. However, it does seem clear that Tusk strongly prefers the former to the latter, and is likely to attend to it accordingly. Furthermore, if disagreements between Poland and the other Visegrad countries over security matter continue, then the grouping could quickly become irrelevant, given that Poland is by far and away the largest country in the group. Either way, it's becoming evident that Poland's role in Europe is becoming ever more prominent, something that Tusk is definitely keen to take an advantage of. If you want to keep learning and expanding your knowledge, then I'd recommend you check out Wendover Productions' brilliant series, The Logistics of X. You likely know Wendover already, but in this series they dive deeper into the logistics and operations behind everything from search and rescue operations to ski resorts and coal mining. One episode I think you'd particularly enjoy is their latest, which gets into the logistics of weapons manufacturing, something that's key to a number of topics we discuss regularly in TLDR videos, and something that directly impacts wars and conflicts all around the world. It's a brilliantly researched and thorough series, and it's exclusively available on our streaming service Nebula. As you likely know, Nebula is the service we built with a bunch of our creator friends, and is the home to tons of smart educational content from all of your favourite creators. The best part is that by signing up, you not only get access to exclusive series like The Logistics of X, Modern Conflicts from Real Life Law, or China Actually from Polymatter, it also directly supports TLDR. That's because when you sign up, you contribute to the budgets of these big budget documentaries and help us grow and expand our ambitions. If you want to get more superb context and support TLDR, then if you sign up using the link below, you can support us directly and get Nebula for 40% off their annual plan. That's less than £2 a month. Thanks for your support and for backing Nebula.